Welcome back to Moms Coaching Moms. And we are starting a new series actually this week. And we are talking about mental health because October is Mental Health Awareness Month. And for both Christine and I, mental health has always been, but definitely in the last few to number of years, has been become so important. And I think just in our world in general right now, being that we're still walking through the whole COVID fiasco, COVID life, COVID, I don't know what to call it. Storm. I guess we use storm because
Yep.
it has been a storm. And I mean, we've seen the numbers have skyrocketed for or I guess declined, whichever way you want to look at it, for mental health and all of the crises and the problems. I mean, there's so many specialists that are saying we also have a mental health pandemic right now.
Yep.
And so we really wanted to talk about mental health and thought, what better month than this month, being that it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And we have some really special topics coming up actually throughout this month that are really close to us, that we've, everything that we talk about, we've lived and we've walked through. So, it's so close to us. It's so important. So today we're starting with navigating mental health storms as moms. And why don't you open it up and talk about because you originally sort of came up with this initial idea of this storm and stuff because of what you've walked through. One of many of the journeys that you've walked through in storms, that you came up with this visual, and then we've put it into, I guess, we really built it out for ourselves to work through this whole time. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, my this part of my journey, I guess, was when I was about 5 years ago now, 6 years, that a very significant crash happened. And it was sort of when our youngest finally got a long list of diagnoses that, we'd been struggling to find answers to. And I remember the very place that I was in when it felt like I was absolutely hit with this mega thrust earthquake, followed by this massive tsunami, and I was underwater and just absolutely hit with such an incredible force of crisis that I didn't know if I would break the surface again. And sort of just as I did break the surface and what sort of that journey looked like to get me to where I am today was absolutely the idea of being hit with a storm and being shipwrecked at sea, and sort of what happens with that. And so sort of with that in mind, I sort of went from being shipwrecked at sea to being on land again, and building a lighthouse and finding the light within myself, and then being able to be that light for other people that are lost at sea.
Yeah. And it's such a powerful visual. And so as we were talking about this, just navigating the mental health storms as moms is how we called this first week. Because I think the first thing that we have to recognize is, and we totally know it's not just as moms, everyone gets hit, but we're speaking just to moms and as moms. The reality is we will be hit with storms. It's just a reality of life. And so it's okay, what are we going to do when we do? And how can we be prepared? What tools do we need? What skills do we need? And so for for me, I know we were talking the other day, and like we both have had like multiple sort of breakdowns, some more epic than others and such, but yeah, so one of, I guess, the bigger ones for me was 7 years ago, and almost exactly 7 years ago, actually, now. I had a full hysterectomy done. Should have probably been done a few years ahead. I have endometriosis, and I had it my whole life, going back now, numerous times over. I mean, that's like a long history and a long story in itself. It just wasn't known when I was a kid. I remember going to the doctor numerous times. And finally, one doctor looked at my mom and I think I was about 15 or 16. And he just said, well, you have two options. You can go on the pill or you can get pregnant. And I just remember like, what? I was like, first, just so embarrassed. My mom was sitting there with me, and anyone that knows me, I'm a pastor's kid. And so neither option was actually even an option in my life. So I just went on with life and I learned to live with it. And anyways, fast forward, getting pregnant didn't help. Going on the pill didn't help. Tried it all. And so ended up with, after my 5 kids, I had a full hysterectomy. And I thought, this is the best, I made the best decision that I knew how to make with the information that I had. I had tried numerous other things over the years. And so, that's the storm that I didn't even know was even coming. It's sort of like the calm before the storm that they say, thinking that it's like, okay, this is a great decision. Let's do this. And so like through our sort of how we walked through like navigating these storms, the first thing that sort of hits, I mean, the storm hits and you get shipwrecked. And so you get shipwrecked, swept onto an island. And, so we've been playing around with terms and stuff, but we sort of, I sort of came up with this, like the island of suck. Like there's this island that just, it's when you realize that like this stuff that, I think you call it this muck, and it's just, whatever it is to you, it's just the hard yuck, like just horrible stuff that you would never choose. You didn't choose it. You didn't know that it was necessarily even coming. And so, but then you find yourself there. And for me, I mean, everyone knows I research things so incredibly much, so much. I read so much. And I didn't realize that I needed hormones after this full hysterectomy. No doctors ever talked to me about it. Nothing. They're just like, yeah, you'll be fine. Well, it was a lot, like 3 years later, I found myself, it was probably less, 2.5 years or something like that. I found myself sitting in a doctor's office, and the doctor looking at me and saying, I don't even know how you're sitting here. I don't know how you are walking around. I don't know how you're moving. Like you shouldn't be even functioning. Like there's, on paper, my blood work, everything. He's like, there's no way you should even be functioning right now. I don't know how you're even like, and I just kind of looked at him and laughed. And like, yeah, well, I got 5 kids. Like, what else am I supposed to do? And so that was when, now I look back, like it just sort of became life. Just going through, like, I mean, the hysterectomy itself was, it was a trauma, like all to itself. I reacted, they don't know to what. I was having convulsions and all sorts of stuff like all night, and they just kept giving me more drugs and stuff. And eventually, like, it went away and stopped. So, but I mean, that was trauma in itself. And going home and, I was like, okay, I just need to heal. I'll be good. And that's not what happened. The healing, yes, while maybe like physically the scars like healed and such. However, yeah, I guess in another physical way and emotionally and stuff, like I ended up just like totally my body physically crashing, just like nothing left. And that's when, I realized I was like, wow, like so the next step that we kind of went to with this is like, you just fend for yourself, because when that hits and when you're shipwrecked, you are kind of like on your own. You're kind of like, in that island of yourself. And it's like, okay, you're kind of trying to get your bearings. You're looking around going like, where am I? What happened? What's going on? What do I have to do? And we were saying like, different things that happen. I mean, I think most people have probably seen Survivor or heard of it. Like, you kind of think of those things like, okay, where am I going to get food? Where am I going to get, trying to just survive is really what you're trying to do. And you don't really know what you're doing. And that's where I found myself. I was just like, it was a really interesting place to be. I never ever really processed it, actually, because I had 5 kids. I was taking care of them all. We had other kids that were constantly at our house. And so I was constantly taking care of other kids as well. And so like we always had a full house. And so, yeah, I could lay down, but yeah, it was a really interesting space. And so then, I don't even remember how I found this doctor. I just, at some point, I remember just thinking like, I don't even know how it came to me that maybe I needed hormones and whatever. Found this doctor, and yeah, like, he's looking at the sheets and just saying like, you are not surviving here. Like, there's nothing happening in your body and all the tests and everything. It was unbelievable just to sit there and hear what was happening in my body, because I could feel it, but having someone actually tell me, because no one saw what was actually happening. No one, when I look back now, that's something that I've had to like walk through and try and come to terms with, of like, how could no one see how sick I actually was? I guess it's almost like, if we're using our analogy still, it's almost like, people going by, like they're on their speedboats and they're, and maybe they're surfing and they're skiing and they're whatever. And they're just like, hey, it's good to see ya. Like, and they're having fun. And I'm sitting there just like, I'm dying here. Like, I need rescuing here. And they're like, yeah, good to see ya. Like, how, and I guess that's sort of how it felt. So yeah, so for having that doctor to finally see me and go like, you're not okay, was really huge for me. And so then that's kind of like the space of getting rescued by the Coast Guard, or maybe someone on a neighboring island that sees you and actually sees you and actually goes, oh, hey, do you need help? Like, or let me help you. And so it was an interesting space, because once I got the hormone, I mean, it took a long time to work that way back. I mean, it had been like 3 years of getting that way. It wasn't just like coming back overnight, but I could do a little bit more every day. It started with like, I could do 1 day a week. I could actually get out of the house but then I would be like out for like, days after or whatever. But I would be like, oh my goodness, I did one day this week where I could do one thing, or I could do like, oh my goodness, I did one, like I swept my house, once, and like, oh my land, I did that. And then, I'd be out for days or whatever. But yeah, it was quite the journey. And so as we've gone through this, and then, I mean, you have to get assessed. So when you get rescued, then you have to get assessed. And you get assessed and you're like, okay, where are you at right now? Like, really, where are you at? And that was for me sitting in the doctor's office and kind of going through that and then going, okay, so here's your next steps. For us emotionally, if you've seen any of our other videos and stuff that we talk about the Wendy assessment that we've done, the psychological needs assessment for us. And emotionally, that's something that we've done that assessment. And we can take a look at so many different things like mindset and our self-concept and just all these different traits. And one of the pieces of it that we found was it's called the nature of reaction. And there's 5 pieces to it. And these are 5 really key pieces to our mental health. And so there's worry, which would sort of be before and in the midst of the storm, the emotion, sort of before and in the midst of the storm, the crisis response that we have. So sort of after the shipwreck, and when you're standing there and trying to take evaluation, like, like, oh my goodness, my crisis response, and then like recovery time, what does that look like? And then the intensity. And those are sort of the 5 nature of reaction that hit. And so it's something that we've looked into, we've looked at and kind of talked about and talked our way through each of those. And so it's really interesting when we take a look at each of those and then sort of put it into like personal stories. And so then after the assessment, the road to recovery starts. And that's where, for us, like emotionally and all that, we use, the assessment, and we use coaching and stuff. So the road to recovery for me was, it was a few years. And it wasn't just there was the physical side to it. Yes. Because my body physically had to heal. But what I found was there was a whole lot more emotional side to it. Just the whole thing of like, just like, how could no one notice? How could no one see me? And, I guess for me growing up as well, it wasn't a thing to ask for anything, to be needy, I guess, that was sort of the thing. So, however, that's something that I have learned more about with myself, is that like, it's okay to ask for help. I would say that like, as far as it went, the further it went, I didn't even know I needed help. I think because I was in such a emergent state, maybe, that I didn't even know that I needed help. I didn't even know how bad it was. And so that's where like sometimes we just need someone else to come along and be like, hey, I see you. Let me help you. Because I know you've talked about that, like, because we've talked a bit about that, how like there's sort of 2 spaces there of coming along and asking like, hey, what do you need? But then the other space of someone coming and going, like, someone saying, I don't even know what I need. And then going, okay, well, like, let me help you. And that was kind of that space of like the doctor coming in and going like, you need help, and this is what we're going to do. And this is what you need to do. And this is what that. And so then, as that happens, like, as a recovery happens, then we can actually, I guess we get to decide what we're going to do with that. And we can choose to build our own lighthouse. We can choose to, maybe we build connectors with other people who've been there and been through it, and, that we can kind of walk alongside others, and it's going to look different. And maybe we, part of that journey of recovering is going and helping someone else, or maybe it's, whatever it is. I mean, there's just so many options of that, but it's, we become, I know you said before, what you said is like, we become our own light source. And that's really kind of where it sort of almost has to start. We have to find sort of our way ourselves first. And it's always this paradox, really. It's always this paradox of the yin and yang of like needing people and doing it yourself, and needing others and doing it yourself. And it's always like this, this going back and forth of that. I mean, obviously the scars and the physical side of it healed a long time ago. Because we're like, 7 years now. I would say the mental health of it, I'm still dealing with. And it's just I like the logical side. I like it to make sense. and the side of like, how did no one see me? Like, how did no one know that it was that bad? Like, and that can really just like play in my mind. And that, now it's with the mental health, and then how now too, that I see how it played out in my kids as well, because, they were all affected. We homeschooled, they were all at home. And, I mean, I think in some ways, they were like, I mean, they had fun. There was, because there was always other kids over and stuff too. So, they were sort of living their best life for a while. They're like having fun. However, it is interesting as we have those conversations and talk about that period of time. I know there's another piece, because our second daughter got concussions a year later, well, not even a year later. And that was a time that was, like that was another one. I mean, that was a year after my hysterectomy. So that was before I even I knew and I figured out that I was so going downhill. Like, and even that, I'm like, how did no one recognize that there was such a problem? Like, because her concussions, and now we understand, like, I was so mentally not well and physically not well, and she was so physically and mentally not well. And I mean, we just clashed. Like, that was, and it was it was another storm in there. Another, like the storm upon a storm and such. So like the mental health side of it is really curious. I mean, it's something that honestly I never thought about my entire life. I never thought about mental health. Well, I mean, when we were kids, there was nothing talked about mental health anyways, or even growing up. For me, it was just like, well, you just got to be positive, and you just got to speak what you want, and you just have to keep moving forward. And that, like, I was told that so often, like, by numerous people, just, well, I have problems too. So, but I don't dwell on them. I just keep moving, and like, okay, so that's what I thought I had to do. However, it doesn't work forever. You know, it's I guess like a time bomb that's waiting to go off when you just shove those things down and you just keep shoving them down and shoving them down. You know, it actually, what it does is it builds more pressure under there, and the pressure gets and goes and goes and goes until, you know, it it actually does blow. And any moms that will be on Wednesday night, this coming Wednesday, will get to hear about the blow that exploded in my life this last year. And because that's where it was, you know, a lot of those things, that's what happened, was it just kept getting shoved down and shoved down. And there was a very big explosion. And I've found myself back on another island, or the same, I don't know what we're using for analogy anymore with this, but you know, back on an island. And I've had a few people now tell me, it's like, you know, you're in the emergency room on the table. And it's so true. And it's just funny to me that they said that. And then the other day, I know we were talking after, and I said, all I kept thinking, because there was just stuff that was hitting me the other day, and all I remember thinking is, like, you know, in the medical shows when they're like, we got a bleeder. And I'm like, there, she's bleeding out. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So yeah, and so there's a few things that sort of walk us through this and have helped. Do you want to talk about some of those, like I guess sort of like that, when we say like the first point of contact, and like then I know we talked about like the oars and stuff, just sort of like to walk someone through, like, or some of the techniques, some of the strategies that we use, and some of the stuff that you've used with me, I've used with you, that we've used with others, like as we coach and stuff as well. Just to, I guess, give a little bit of the like tangible things that we use and that we go with to maybe start that. Like, so, you know, if we know someone that's sitting in that dark place, what can we do?
First of all, I want to acknowledge and commend your courage and bravery for sharing that particular storm. I know that it is never easy to explain it, and yet I think that it's a very necessary part of, you know, our healing process. And, you know, quite frankly, mental health storms happen all the time, and I would say we're in a global one right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, sometimes we have no concept of how to regulate ourselves, much less come alongside someone else. And so, with us here, with Moms Coaching Moms, it is not by any way that we have arrived. However, we are also committed to doing the work not only for ourselves, but to come alongside other moms and to share that space. And so, first of all, we see you and we acknowledge you, and we're here. And our Wednesday night is all about creating that space for all of us to come together. Uh, Definitely, the Wendy assessment is where we recommend all moms start, and that you get a clearer picture. And every time that we do a debrief with a mom, they all say the same thing, like, I needed this, and it gives me a clearer picture, and I feel like I understand myself better, and I'm excited to explore this and whatever. And so I know that we've all felt that way. And so definitely the Wendy assessment is the first step.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, we have collaborated with Amanda Todd Legacy Foundation, and they have generously donated. And so right now, for the moms that are coming along and want to join our community, your first month is covered by the Amanda Todd Legacy Foundation. And, you know, they're all about mental health and us bridging that gap, uh, standing standing there with people and helping them and moving through their traumas and internet bullying and all sorts of things like that. And so it's a really great opportunity for moms to come and join us here on our journey. And, you know, we have other things like, you know, it's called the oars. So you have your open questions, you have your appreciations, your reflections, and the summary. And it's just another fantastic way of helping people feel heard and understood and valued in their own journey. And I think that, you know, it's really, really important. One of the biggest challenges within mental health is that, you know, we think we're all alone. And this idea that we have to go through it alone, nobody understands us, or we don't want to burden other people, when in fact one of the most effective antidotes is connection and compassion. And with that then comes, it's a compassion and connection that works for each of us, and it's going to be different. And so how do we learn to use our emotional intelligence to help us with our emotional health? And that is what we are all about here at Mom Coaching Moms. And so, yeah, from the personal one-on-one coaching that we offer, to the small groups, to our courses, to our Wednesday night NJAM, where we're not just a mom. We can also be Mount NJAM, which is more than not just a mom. So whatever you want to, you know, feel like for that, you know, there's a place here for you. So we are excited to share this journey with you, because mental health is such a critical point for us and for our loved ones and for our community at large.
Definitely. And, you know, I mean, like we've already said, you know, I mean, in the last year and a half, I think it's just come to the forefront. Now it's almost kind of forced, you know, seeing that and having to deal with it. And, you know, everyone really, we can only speak as moms. That's who we are. And, but we know as moms how many times we've been, even just you and I, been to doctors, talked with specialists and whatever. And basically it was just like, oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're, you know, oh no, you're fine. Oh, look at this, you're fine. Oh, everything's good. Like, oh, you're okay. Like, okay. You know, and I get like they have started to put some more things in place. For example, like after having a baby, I know that they have definitely put things. I noticed the difference as I had my 5 kids. You know, it was different after each kid. They would put more things in place for mental health and checking up. However, it's just not enough, because what we have found is just the idea of like, moms just don't even speak up. And a lot of times it's the fact that we don't even know. Like we don't know what we don't know, but we don't even know. We don't even recognize. And a lot of times it's because, well, you know, like my joke to the doctor that he's like, I don't even get how you're actually even sitting here, you know, functioning. And I was just like, well, I have 5 kids. Like, you know, it's just kind of a joke. And like, to me now, when I look at that, I'm like, that's not a joke. That shouldn't have been a joke. You know, sure, that's fantastic that you're sitting here, that you made it through, but like, that's not a joke for where I was at, for what was happening in my body. It was a lot of it was shut down already, and it was shutting down more. And so it's a conversation that we really want to have. It's going deeper than just like, hey, how are you? Oh yeah, I'm great. Oh, good. Like, it's how are you? really. And I think it has to start with us as moms. And I know, you used an analogy quite a while ago now, but like in an airplane, do you want to talk about that? Because that's your analogy, when the masks come down and whatever.
Well, I definitely think you hear it all the time that you put your own oxygen mask on first, and you're like, whatever, I'd probably put it on my kid first. However, if you pass out and you haven't even got it on yourself, much less your kid, you're both going down. So the idea is that we really do have to put on our own oxygen mask first. And if we're not looking after our own mental health, we don't have a shot at actually helping our kids. We will miss what's going on with them. We will miss what's going on with our friends, with our neighbors, with significant others, with whatever, because we are not looking after ourselves. And if we do not have a healthy relationship with ourselves, it's just impeding on what kind of relationship we can have with other people. And so it really, really is true that we need to put on our own oxygen mask. And so that's what we're doing here. From the Wendy assessment to our Wednesday night NJAM conversations, to our one-on-one coaching, to our group programs, all of that is all about putting on our own oxygen mask. And it really does mean that then it trickles down. We really do make a more impact, a bigger difference. We help heal more generational wounds when we can start healing our own first. And otherwise, we're just shooting in the dark, and we all know, well, we don't all know, but you can imagine what that's going to do. So yeah, here that it really is about putting on our own oxygen mask. And sure, it sounds cheesy, and it works.
It does. And
I
so,
like that Buckley's commercial, like it tastes awful, but it works.
yeah,
That's the same kind of thing.
But we should coin that, or
right?
put another term.
It's cheesy.
Whatever. Yeah.
And it works.
It works. Yeah. So this week we're talking about like the mental health for ourselves as moms. Next week we're going to actually talk about mental health for our kids. So we're starting with us this week. Next week we're going to be talking about mental health for our kids. What can we do to help our kids? The week after that, we're going to be talking about mental health with health challenges and diversity, because both of us deal with a lot of that. And we have had many storms hit us in those areas. And it's been quite we've been knocked around quite a few times with those. Still are sometimes. So storms still list, I don't think those storms ever end almost. I don't know.
I don't think so.
And then the last week we have a special week that we're not sure exactly what it's going to look like yet. But it's going to be wrapping up Mental Health Awareness Month. So this whole month we're talking about mental health. Again, if you're a mom, you can come to our Wednesday nights. There'll be a link that you can just click to. You have to register. It's free though to come to Wednesday nights. All our social media will be linked and everything to follow us. If you ever have any questions, just reach out. To do the Wendy assessment, you don't have to be just a mom to do the Wendy assessment. No. Anyone can do it. Actually, like corporations, businesses, like they're using that assessment in their companies to help
teenagers. You can start when you're about 15, 16. You can start doing that with your teenagers.
Exactly. Like I couldn't imagine knowing this stuff when I was a teenager. It would be amazing, actually. Families knowing this stuff to be able to, would be incredible. So, that, and then of course the coaching that we offer to, sometimes it can be just like, hey, I have this, this one struggle that I'm trying to get through that I need to work through. We can do that, or it can be an ongoing, or it can be like a family, it can be a group, any of that too, because we know what it's like to need that, and to need someone to just kind of come alongside you and be that in that space with you for a while. So
Absolutely.
awesome. So we will say goodbye for now, I guess, for
Bye for
unless
now.
hopefully moms come Wednesday night.
Yes. See
Otherwise
you
next,
Wednesday.
yep. And next week we'll be back talking about our kids.